There's something about being a World Eater player which makes you a little bit on the less sane side anyway. Now, when you're a World Eater player that just doesn't care and wants to go to a major tournament running a very insane list, well, that bears looking at. So what we got here today is a list analysis for one of our patrons, Josh Connor, who is Lehman Russ in the Discord, if you're in there. And this is his list. We're going to take a deep dive into it coming up next. So here we are. I will have Josh's list on the screen right now, and I'm going to put some pictures up as we go through here. But we're going to first just look at the list and discuss it, and I'm going to go over my thoughts. Then Josh actually took this to the London Grand Tournament about a month ago as of recording, and did pretty well with it. But first, let's go through the list. So let's start off with the HQs. We've got a Chaos Lord who has True Berserker and Gorefather, and a Power Axe and Power Fist. Then we also have a Demon Prince with Wings who has Unholy Fortitude, the Axe as his weapon, and Zal the Wrathful. So what you get here is two Lords that they're offering reroll 1s to any core units, which, as you can see on the list, is basically just your Berserkers. But they both have a little bit of resilience and a little bit of extra damage output. The Chaos Lord, rocking True Berserker, means he'll halve all incoming damage, and also a Gorefather means he can put out quite a few mortal wounds. Next we have the Demon Prince, who, being more mobile than a Chaos Lord and a little bit more expensive, but definitely very punchy, Unholy Fortitude just makes him that much more resilient, and Zal the Wrathful turns the Demonic Axe into an absolute monster, especially against, characters with 4 or 5 plus wounds or vehicles, just with the great AP, the great strength, and everything else. So these are two very killy HQs that will also take a little bit of dedicated aggression to actually bring down. Next we go into the true kind of World Eater core here. We've got 5 squads of 5 Khorne Berserkers, all with chain blades and bolt pistols, and you know what these guys are going to do. They're OBSEC, they're very killy in combat, they can receive a multitude of buffs, they're just going to pretty much trade well on whatever they target. Next is possibly the most off-kilter choice, I would guess, but not in a bad way. This is something I've experimented with, and I'm sure several World Eaters and other Chaos Space Marine players have tried, is the big blob of Possessed with the Black Rune. At T5, 3 wounds with a 3-up, 5-up, and obviously Armour of Contempt and access to light cover, and heavy cover if that ever matters. The Black Rune giving them -1 wound means they're often going to be wounded on 6s against bolt of fire and strength 4 attacks and stuff like that, and just an extra layer of protection, making them very tough and resilient and hard to chew through, and great bodyguards with their speed for the Demon Prince or the Chaos Lord, but I can see the Chaos Lord is more likely to be sitting in one of the transports. There's also 2 individual Chaos Spawn, probably just there to sit on objectives or be an early snag an objective on a 5 objective map, something like that. And then we've got what makes this list absolutely crazy and why I truly love it is triple Land Raiders. The Land Raiders are obviously quite a bit better for Chaos Space Marines now than they are for regular Marines, having toughness 9, 2-up with Armour of Contempt, and 16 wounds. The D6 plus 2 las cannons make them very, very reliable at range. Now, taking one Land Raider, which is all I've experimented so far with our new book, has its pros and cons. It's a tough unit, but it can be very easily countered if you're going into something like Tau or someone who can really pump out mortal wounds and chew through a screen. Taking 3 Land Raiders is going to present a problem for just about any army, because even Tau they'll probably quite reliably take out one of those, but that's still going to leave 2 of them And that's presenting a problem. 2 Land Raiders being able to ferry Berserkers into the mid-table is actually very powerful. So when I initially talked about this list, and I'll put a link above because I did a video reviewing the World Eaters list for the London Grand Tournament, I mentioned that this was a great list for kind of mid-table control. And Josh actually disagreed with me. I can't remember if it was in the Discord or in person, but said it was, more about having the long-range support, which I understand. I do agree. My initial theory was that given that these are going to be typically filled with Berserkers, you're able to push them out into the mid-table and use them as a bounce point for the Berserkers to jump out and take control or trade up or flip an objective in the mid-table, depending on the missions you're playing, of course. Of course, on top of that, you can just sit the Land Raiders back and fire from a distance. This is especially powerful into things like Knights or anyone running Lords of War, because the Land Raider will still benefit from obscuring and dense if relevant, whereas those guys won't. So you've got 12 basically heavy las cannon shots here. So strength 9 -3, d6 +2, reliably causing a lot of damage. So they're also good into elite infantry if you're going into Terminators, because you're getting a minimum of 3 damage. So they just pump out a lot of shots with the twin heavy bolters on top as well, and are very tough to take down. So this list really relies on being able to absorb a lot of firepower between the Land Raiders and the Possessed with the Rune, and give your opponent bad choices. Bolt of Fire and Small Arms is basically going to do nothing into this army in the first couple of turns. Once the Berserkers are out and running around, yep, your Small Arms will start chipping off wounds here and there, but it's not doing much against your Possessed and your Land Raiders. And the Demon Prince with Fly is able to use pretty much everything in the list to benefit from Lookout Sir and leap forwards. He can run up behind a Land Raider or 2, comfortably using it as defense, and then leap out his 12 plus charge distance and probably delete whatever he's charging into. So we've got a lot of aggression, we've got some really strong firepower here, and a lot of resilience built in directly and indirectly into this list, which makes it something not quite what your opponent is going to expect from World Eaters. Typically, they're going to think, oh, I see a World Eaters list, it's going to be Berserkers and Rhinos, probably some really killy characters, which, in essence, this boils down to reductively. But these aren't Rhinos, these are Land Raiders. These shoot really well, and they absorb a heck of a lot of firepower. That's 48 wounds at T9 sitting there. That's a big ask for anyone. There's not a preponderance of strength 10 plus weapons in the game. I know Knights have access to some stuff, Vindicators obviously, and some esoteric stuff dotted in different codexes, but it's not something that most people are bringing a lot of. And, you throw in dense cover onto those, or, even Armor of Contempt is having an impact in just making sure you can't just one-shot a Land Raider. It is possible, but very, very difficult. So overall, whilst Josh and the way he plays it will obviously drive the focus of this list, and if he chooses to play it with those Raiders sitting back and peppering heavy targets from a distance, that's absolutely legit, because those Berserkers can just jump out for the extra 3 inches of movement and then zip between cover here and there, flipping objectives, and there's enough of them to really cause a problem for your opponent. Coupled with 2 quite killy, or very killy really, with the Demon Prince characters and a big blob of Possessed, this is causing a lot of problems for a lot of armies. So speaking of that, let's look at how Josh did at the London Grand Tournament. So the LGT was essentially a 5-round tournament for those of us who didn't, for those players that didn't make the top brackets. And I think it went on to 8 rounds for those that did, with kind of a playoff round, semi-finals and the final. But in Josh's first match, he played against Stephen Gray, who was rocking, let me just see here, Tyranids. According to his list, Tyranids, that's not a great draw, round 1. But if you're going into Tyranids and you can win the game 100-40, your list is functioning. I'm guessing his opponent just didn't have a real way of dealing with those Land Raiders, and Josh was able to command the objectives and just absolutely, completely deny his opponent any way of realistically scoring. This very strong win, unfortunately for Josh, put him into Necrons round 2. And Necrons, certainly at time of the LGT, before the Votann meta, before the very, very insignificant and minor nerf they received in the Balanced Data Slate, Necrons were and still are one of the top armies out there, almost purely based on their secondary scoring, and that shows here with the Necrons scoring 100 to Josh's 52. In his round 3, he got Drukhari, which, I can see that. You're 1-on-1, I can see playing Drukhari in round 3 of especially a large tournament. They're still quite a popular army. They're still strong in the meta, not as strong as they were. And this was a bit closer, Josh scoring another 53, but losing ultimately to the Drukhari's 86. But we can see here in the 3 games so far, Josh is easily scoring 50 plus points, which, even against a strong army like Necrons is tough. So he's got some solid secondaries and or primary play built into this list and the way that he commands it. So on day 2, he would have faced the Grey Knights in round 4, and he won that one 100 to 48. So whatever secondaries Josh was able to pick, I'm obviously guessing Abhor the Witch in this situation, and depending on what the mission was, there might have been some other good synergy there. Perhaps engaging all front is something that works well with those Land Raiders. I'm not sure. But 100 to 48 is another really solid win, really running away with the points, making sure he's dominating the primary game, which, makes sense with those either very tough to kill units or MSU OBSEC Berserkers, which will just flip and take control of objectives in most situations. So this puts him at 2-2 going into round 5, and he faces Black Templars, which is basically loyalist world eaters, potentially in some situations a bit better, just depends on the skill of the general. But Josh pulled out another very convincing win here, 85 to 37. So overall, he finished 3-2, which was really good. It's a really good showing for a major tournament like that. So the list obviously works. I don't know if he's changed it up recently. I know he mentioned some ideas he was having when we met at the LGT and some thoughts and feelings on where he wanted to go. But I'll be interested to see if he's sticking with this core of the triple Land Raiders, because it's a really interesting build, and it really is going to throw a lot of opponents off. People just aren't really prepping for it. You may be prepping for Knights, but you're probably specking for killing a lot more T7 bodies than you are several T8 or in this case T9 bodies. So if you're running a bunch of Melter, you're still wounded on 5s versus this. So there's a lot going on here. The list obviously fucks, quite frankly. It done well into Tyranids, which is a big ask, and then did also very strong into Grey Knights and Black Templars. Grey Knights are typically not a very easy matchup for World Eaters, just because we're going to lack a lot of the access to deny the Witch and things like that. So ultimately, this was a really good, successful proof of concept for a triple Land Raider list, and it is something I would actually like to try myself. I probably wouldn't build it quite the same way myself, but that's just because of my playstyle. Now, the biggest thing that really makes me happy about this is that people are not afraid to just try really crazy ideas. Like Triple Land Raider, it feels like a meme. Like someone's talking about it, yeah, that's just a meme list. But it's obviously not. With enough skill driving it from the commander, you can obviously do well with this. And maybe if Josh hadn't run into Necrons in round 2, maybe he should have scored a little lower in his first round win, maybe. But if he hadn't run into Necrons, he might have got another win there, which, would have driven him up into the high tables where he's really going to be facing strong players and strong armies in the later rounds. But he may have sort of, I don't want to say lucked out, because I hate attributing any kind of win or loss to luck or bad luck. But if he had faced a more favourable opponent, he could have, could have got the Sacred 4-1 or even a 5-0 and go into the next rounds. Because it's really hard to tell how a very kind of skew list, I guess we'll call it, is going to do. And I just love that there is adaptability and versatility in World Eaters lists, in the players that are running them. There's no desire to just everyone do the same thing all the time. everyone's got something different, and this just shows that, you know, we can make things work. It makes me think of Dylan Matusek's list that he ran at, I can't remember which major it was or if it was a GT, but where he did really well and he was running a Land Raider as well. So there's something there, everyone. There's something in the Chaos Land Raider. I think the key would be to be running 3 of them. But maybe it's just my lack of skill as a player where I haven't had the greatest success with running 1 of them. But yeah, so that's it. This is, as I said, this was a list analysis for one of our patrons. And I just wanted to go over some of his results just to show that the list is more than just something in theory. It's something with practical reps behind it that has proved to function. So this is obviously more of a competitive breakdown, looking at the nuts and bolts of it from that kind of standpoint. So yeah, we're going to wrap this one up. I just want to thank Josh for sharing his list with me, and appreciate the really cool design. It's kind of like a Space Wolf conversion theme going on there. Which works, you know, everyone likes a good fight. So yeah. Alright folks, that's it for this one. Hope you've enjoyed it, and hope to see you in the next one. Until next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill main burn.